The road was empty when she saw the cat. Just past 9 o'clock, the streetlights humming low, the air already sharp with the season's first real cold. She almost missed her, a thin gray shape pressed low against the concrete, right at the edge of a storm drain. Steam rose from the cat's mouth with every breath. She was staring down into the dark. That was the first thing the woman noticed. Not fear, not hunger. Just that stare, fixed and unmoving, like the cat was waiting for something to happen at the bottom of that hole. Wait, what happened here? The woman slowed her car, pulled over, stepped out into air already biting at her fingers. The cat didn't run. Strange. On its own, a stray this thin, this exposed, should have bolted the second a door opened. Instead, she stayed exactly where she was. Ears low, eyes locked on the opening like nothing else existed. The woman took a step closer. The cat's whole body changed. Her spine dropped lower, her shoulders tensed. She didn't back away. She moved toward the drain, planting herself between the woman and the opening like she was guarding something. Something was clearly keeping her here. The woman stopped walking, crouched instead, keeping her distance. "Hey there," she said softly. "It's okay." The cat didn't relax. She let out a sound the woman hadn't heard a cat make before. Not quite a meow. Lower, more urgent, aimed straight down into the drain. Then silence. Listening. The street had gone still around them. A car passed somewhere behind the trees, headlights sweeping the road before vanishing again. The cold was settling in fast now, the kind that finds your knuckles and stays. Still the cat did not move. The woman had a small pouch of food in her coat pocket, kept for moments like this. She opened it slowly, set some on the ground, pushed it forward with 2 fingers. The cat glanced at it, then looked away. That was when the woman understood. This wasn't a stray looking for a meal. Hunger would have won by now. Cold would have sent her looking for shelter. Instead, she sat beside a drain on an empty road, ignoring the food, ignoring the woman, ignoring everything except that black opening in the pavement. Minutes passed, the kind that stretch longer than they should. The woman sat down on the curb, arms around her knees, just watching. She didn't know why she stayed. Maybe the cold, maybe the quick, uncertain glances the cat kept throwing her way, like she was deciding whether this stranger could be trusted. Or maybe some part of her already sensed this wasn't going to be a simple night. The cat lay down, not curled for warmth, not resting. She lay flat against the pavement, close enough that her whiskers nearly brushed the metal grate, her whole body angled toward the dark below. Watching, waiting. Nearly 10 now. The woman thought about leaving, told herself the cat would move on eventually. But every time she stood to go, something in her stomach told her not to. So she stayed a little longer. Then she heard it. At first she thought it was wind or a bird settled somewhere nearby. A faint thin sound, barely there. She held her breath and listened harder. It came again, smaller this time, higher. The mother cat's head snapped toward the drain, ears pinned forward, body going rigid. The woman's heart dropped. She leaned in slowly, pressing her ear close to the cold metal grate, and this time there was no mistaking it. Kitten cries, coming from somewhere beneath the road. The sky was still gray, the sun barely a suggestion behind the clouds. When the rescue truck finally turned onto the road, the mother cat's head lifted the moment she heard the engine. She didn't run, she didn't hide. She stood there, thin and tired, right beside the drain, watching as 2 figures climbed out and walked toward her. The woman met them halfway, pointing to the grate, explaining what she'd heard through the long night. One of the rescuers crouched down immediately, listening the way the woman had hours earlier, ear close to the metal, eyes narrowed in concentration. A faint cry answered him. He looked up at his partner, nodded once. They got to work carefully, checking the drain's structure, figuring out the safest way in without causing a collapse or pushing debris further down where the kittens might be. It was slow, deliberate. Every minute felt longer than the last. The mother cat paced nearby, close enough to watch everything, far enough not to get in the way. Her eyes never left their hands. When the grate finally came loose, she pressed forward immediately, and one of the rescuers gently held her back, not away from her kittens, just far enough to keep her safe while they worked. Oh, then work. She let out another cry, aimed straight down into the opening. This time several tiny voices answered her at once. The woman felt her chest tighten. There, in the beam of a flashlight, were small shapes huddled together in the dark. 3, maybe 4 kittens pressed into each other for warmth. Eyes barely open, mouths open in thin, desperate cries. They were calling for her, and she was calling back. The mother cat's whole posture shifted in that moment. The tension that had held her rigid all night seemed to loosen, just slightly. Her ears came forward, her tail lifted. She pressed as close to the opening as the rescuer would allow, answering every cry with one of her own. For the first time since the woman had found her, she looked less like an animal bracing for the worst and more like a mother who could finally see the end of something. One of the rescuers reached in carefully, murmuring low and calm, moving slow enough not to startle the tiny bodies inside. His hand closed gently around the first kitten. Small, damp, shivering, it let out a cry the second it left the dark, and the mother cat surged forward before anyone could stop her. They let her. She reached the kitten within seconds, lowering her head to sniff it, then lick it, fast and urgent, checking every inch like she needed to confirm with her own senses that this was really hers, that it was really safe. The kitten pressed into her, quieting almost instantly. The second kitten came next, then a third. Each time the same routine, the mother's nose finding them first, her tongue smoothing down wet fur, her body curling protectively around the newest addition to the small growing pile beside her. The woman stood back and watched, throat tight, unable to say anything at all. By the time the last kitten was lifted free, the smallest of them all, barely making a sound, the mother cat had already arranged the others into a tight circle against her body, as if she'd been doing this her whole life and knew exactly how the pieces were supposed to fit. She checked the last one just as carefully as the first. Then, finally, she lay down, not pacing, not staring at the drain, just lying there in the pale early light, with all 4 kittens pressed against her, safe. The rescuers exchanged a quiet look, the kind that didn't need words. Everyone there understood what they'd just watched. A mother who had spent an entire freezing night beside a hole in the ground, refusing every comfort, refusing to leave, because somewhere down in that dark she knew her babies were waiting, and she had been right to stay. The rescuers moved quickly once the kittens were out, but carefully too. The way you'd handle something you understood was fragile in more ways than one. They brought over a soft blanket first, laying it down beside the mother cat rather than trying to move her. She watched every motion, still cautious, still protective, but something in her had settled now that all 4 kittens were within reach of her body. One of the rescuers knelt a short distance away and set down a small dish of food. This time she ate. Not much, not fast, but she ate, glancing up between bites to check on the small shapes curled against her side, as if she still couldn't quite believe they were really there. The woman stayed close, wrapped in her coat, watching the family she'd spent the whole night beside. Her legs ached from the cold and the hours of sitting, but she barely noticed. She was still holding her breath a little, the way you do when something has gone right after being afraid it wouldn't. The kittens pressed into their mother's fur, exhausted from the cold and the crying and the long dark hours underground. One by one they quieted. Their tiny bodies stopped shivering as her warmth reached them, as the blanket beneath them blocked out the chill of the pavement. The mother cat lowered her head and began to groom them, one after another, slow and steady. The same instinct that had kept her circling that drain all night now turned toward something gentler. Checking, cleaning, making sure. The rescuers gave them space, standing back to let the family settle before preparing to move them somewhere warmer, somewhere safer than a roadside at dawn. There would be a carrier soon, a clinic, a proper place to rest and recover from a night none of them should have had to survive. But for now there was just this. A mother and her 4 kittens together again in the pale light of a morning that had felt impossibly far away just hours before. At one point, the mother cat lifted her head and looked back toward the storm drain. The woman noticed it, the way her eyes lingered there for a long moment, as if some part of her was still standing guard, still listening for a cry that wouldn't come again because there was nothing left down there to wait for. Then she turned back to her kittens. That was all. No hesitation, no lingering wait. Whatever had kept her rooted to that spot for hours no longer had a hold on her. Her babies were here now, warm against her, breathing steady. The drain was just a drain again. The woman thought about the night that had just passed, how easy it would have been to drive by without stopping, without noticing a thin cat staring into a storm drain on an empty road. How the mother cat had never known, not for 1 second of those long cold hours, whether anyone was coming, whether help would find her, whether her kittens would make it through the night at all. She had stayed anyway, not because she understood the odds, not because she had any promise that things would turn out this way. She'd simply refused to leave, hour after hour, because leaving was never something a mother in her position would consider. As the rescuers gently lifted the blanket, kittens and all, to move the family into the warmth of the truck, the mother cat followed without protest, close behind, eyes fixed on her babies the entire way. She climbed in beside them the moment she was given the chance, curled her body around all four one more time, the way she had every hour of that long night, except now there was no more waiting in it. No more watching a dark hole in the ground. Just her kittens, safe, breathing, alive. The woman stood on the empty road as the truck doors closed, the first real light of morning breaking over the tree line. She thought about how simple it all was, in the end. A mother didn't need to understand the odds to keep waiting for her babies. Sometimes love simply means refusing to leave. And this mother cat never did.